G'day and welcome to The Life Aquatic with Rob Bull. G'day YouTube, Rob here with another episode of my series Tank Breakdown, where I take a look at each of my tanks individually and break them down in detail, explaining what I have in the tank in terms of equipment, substrate, decor, plants and stocking, and I'll also explain a little bit of the reasoning that goes into choosing the things that I choose and why I've chosen them. And in today's episode we'll be looking at the big one, the Thunderdome. But before we get into that, I better remind you guys of the YouTube formalities. If you do like the movie, don't forget to gently caress that like button, share it out, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss any upcoming content. So we'll start off by taking a trip back in time, a long way back in time. This footage here is about 3 years old, from when I helped my friend originally set up this tank. I inherited this tank from him when he lost interest and started losing some fish. I actually advised against these stocking choices, but surprisingly for a long time it worked, until, as I said, he started losing interest. I think he went away and the more aggressive fish ate the less aggressive fish. At which point he realised that he'd lost interest and offered me the tank, and of course, being an addict, I accepted and took it over. So out of the fish that you see here, I inherited Grover, the blue dolphin cichlid there. As you can see, he's quite small and cute there. Much larger now. And the two convict cichlids, Paddy and Selma, who despite being both female, have paired up to the point where they actually lay eggs. Obviously they don't get fertilised and then they eat them, but they certainly dig like a breeding pair, that's for sure. All of the plecos and the tiger barbs in the tank, I assume, were eaten by the cichlid, as there were no signs of disease in the tank. And here's the Thunderdome the day after I got it. We didn't have to go far and we had a few guys, so I drained most of the water and moved it as it was. And on the first day I reintroduced the fish. I played around a little bit, added that big rock pile, added some Java moss. I also changed the location of the internal power head filter, so that rather than just blowing against the front glass, it blew around the central decorations in a circular or whirlpool motion, which moves the water around the tank much more effectively. I obviously also added some new fish, so on the second day I added the two albino dragon blood peacocks, Ernie and Silas, and I also introduced Bert, the electric yellow lab. I also added a bunch of new decorations, and a couple of days after that I introduced a pair of Eureka Red peacock cichlids that I'd rescued, and the footage that you're seeing here is the female instantly getting involved in courting behaviour with Grover, and that was literally 5 minutes after they were introduced, and the tank currently has some of their fry swimming around in it right now. As for equipment, this tank has got a 1200 litre an hour internal power head filter. When I got it, it had a single 100 watt heater in it, which I then upgraded to a digital 300 watt heater, which failed after about 2 or 3 months. So now it has two 100 watt heaters in there. Pro tip, it's always better to have two smaller heaters than one big one. That heater fail caused quite a lot of drama, and there'll be an upcoming video on that one. And I also replaced the original DIY box filter that I built for me with just a large sponge filter, and then eventually I threw a second one in there to mature as a spare for setting up other tanks. All of the sponge filters and the air stone that's in there are powered by the Dynamic Power 4 outlet air pump, which so far, after about a year of having one, I can't recommend highly enough. And apart from a 4-foot LED light bar and the thermometer, that's about it for the equipment. As for the substrate, that is pool filter sand and a very deep bed of it. Now there was a reason for that. When I was originally helping my friend set up this tank, I asked if he was going to have plants in it, and he said no, at which point I warned him that he would have to do frequent water changes to lower the nitrates in the tank. And he laughed at me, and I told him about a thing that I'd heard about anaerobic bacteria in deep substrate beds removing nitrate by converting them into nitrogen gas. So I may have kind of used him as a guinea pig, and he never really had a problem with nitrates when I come round to test his water occasionally. So I figured it must have been working, and obviously I've kept that set up to this day. Now there is one major drawback with using pool filter sand, and that is that it is high in silicates, and that encourages the growth of diatoms, or brown slime algae, which in these conditions will outcompete plants and other green kinds of algae by using silica to make their cell walls, which is much more efficient and allows them to outcompete those other organisms. I've made a video on diatoms and how I dealt with them, so I'll pop a link to that one in the description. As for the decor, it's a mixture of fake and real rocks, some cool looking ceramics that I picked up from an op shop, or for my American friends I think they call them thrift shops there, and it's all been arranged to provide the maximum number of hides in what is effectively a massive line of sight block. Now this is a big part of the reason why my fish, despite being highly aggressive, don't kill each other, as the guy getting beaten up can always get away from the bully. There's also a bunch of fake plants in there, because these fish are notoriously hard on plants, and the only live plants that are in there is the Java moss, which no one seems to find palatable. And most recently I added some shells as decor to provide some extra hiding places for the fry that are in there. I've also got a video in the works on those fry and their struggle to survive in this tank with the big cichlids, so keep an eye out for that one too. As for stocking, there is currently one female bristlenose pleco in there, and Cistrus cirrhosis. Her name is Carmela, and she is one half of my breeding pair of bristlenose plecos. Her partner Tony is still in the 3-foot tank. I couldn't catch them both, but I'm working on that. Then of course there's the star of the show, Grover, the blue dolphin cichlid, or Certicara morai. There is also a male electric yellow lab, or Labidochromis caeruleus. His name is Bert. Then of course there is Paddy and Selma, the female convict cichlid pair. The Latin name for them is Amatitlania nigrofasciata, which I assure you is quite a difficult thing to say. And lastly there are the male and the female Eureka Red peacock cichlids, which are Lonocara Jacob Friedbergi, and the male's name is Elmo and the female's name is Abby, as in Abby Cadabby. Now, I fully understand that some African cichlid keeping purists will take issue with a couple of things in this tank. The first of which is keeping Africans with South American cichlids. Personally, I don't see a problem with it. The water parameters overlap. The fish have similar aggression levels, and I would say that anyone who has sufficient experience with keeping cichlids and diffusing fish aggression can certainly do this. The only issue is should they, and personally I think that's a personal choice thing. The second thing that purists might take umbrage with are the fry in the tank. I'm 99.9% sure that they are hybrid blue dolphin Eureka Red peacock cichlids, and purists don't like the hybrids. Now, I have no intention of selling these. I let them breed in the tank for that exact reason. I didn't want millions of them, but I do want to grow them out, and I do want to breed them to see if they will breed true rather than just randomly spitting out either peacocks or dolphin cichlids. What many of these same purists fail to recognise is that many extremely popular African cichlids are hybrids. Hoobie peacocks, dragon blood peacocks, both hybrids, but hybrids that breed true. So who knows, I might create a new fish. Anyway, thanks for joining me at this look at the evolution of the Thunderdome, right from its very beginning to today. It's been running for, it must be close on 4 years now, so it is a very mature aquarium. This one is by far and away my favourite aquarium. These fish hand feed, they're highly personable, and to be quite frank, they're just stunning colour-wise. My crappy camera just does not do them any justice whatsoever, and they really don't look that bad in the footage. So if you like this episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it out, and if you're not subscribed, you should really hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell so that you don't miss any of the future content. And as always, look after each other and your fish.